Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're going to be diving into something pretty cool, I think. It's a new research paper all about something called LongRAG.
LongRAG.
Yeah. Now, I know RAG doesn't exactly, get the heart racing right.
Right.
But trust me, this is some seriously cutting-edge AI stuff we're talking about. So think of it like this. You go online, you want to search for something, type in your question, and boom, you just get hit with like a million links.
Yeah. Information overload.
Total information overload. And then you got to kind of, skim through all of them just to try and find the answer you're actually looking for. That's basically what traditional RAG is doing, but for AI, right?
Yeah.
It's using what's called a retriever to find all that information. And then it uses a reader to kind of understand it and give you an answer.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. It really is like trying to drink from a fire hose. Too
Totally.
much information at once.
Yeah, there's a problem with that though, right?
There is.
What's the problem?
It's just too much
Right.
for the reader to really process efficiently. And it can get, sidetracked with all this irrelevant stuff.
Right. So it's kind of getting bogged down with all the noise, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so that makes sense. So enter LongRAG, our potential solution that's, making some waves in the AI world right now. What is it about LongRAG that makes it so special?
So imagine you have a brilliant detective,
Mm.
and they're trying to solve this super complex case. But instead of getting a nicely organized case file, they're given this mountain of tiny scraps of paper,
Oh, wow.
each one with a little random clue on it.
Talk about information overload. That
Yeah.
sounds awful.
That's essentially what traditional RA is like. The retriever's going crazy, trying to find all these little bits of info,
Right.
while the reader, which is capable of so much more, is stuck trying to put a puzzle together with only like half the pieces.
So it's almost like there's too much noise and not enough signal. So how does LongRAG come in and change that? Does it give our detective a better filing system or something?
Exactly. LongRAG basically says, let's give our reader AI more context. Instead of these tiny little snippets, it uses whole documents, sometimes even groups of related documents together.
Okay.
We're talking like 4,000 words or more.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It is. It's like giving the detective entire chapters of the case file instead of just random sentences.
Right, so it's like quality over quantity, I guess, giving the reader more to work with, but in a way that actually makes sense.
Exactly. And this shift has some major benefits. First off, it dramatically reduces the size of the information pool that the retriever has to search through,
Okay.
sometimes by as much as 30 times.
Wow, that's incredible.
It is. That means less time wasted on irrelevant clues
Yeah.
and a much higher chance of finding the right information.
Okay, so that's pretty impressive. But what about the reader, though? Can it really handle that much more information? I mean, we're talking a lot more here.
That's where the magic really happens. LongRAG uses the power of these advanced AI models like Gemini and GPT-4, which are specifically designed to understand longer pieces of text, making connections and inferences that traditional RAG just can't handle.
Okay, so it's like giving our detective a super-powered magnifying glass so they
Yeah.
can actually see the big picture now.
Exactly. And the results speak for themselves. LongRAG achieved state-of-the-art performance on 4 different question-answering data sets. And here's the kicker.
Yeah.
It did all of this without any training.
Wow, no training at all.
No.
It's amazing. So it sounds like this LongRAG is a real game changer. But what kind of data sets were they testing it on? Was it just simple stuff, or were they throwing some real curveballs at it?
Well, they used a variety. Some were based on Wikipedia, like
Yep.
NQ and HotpotQA,
Okay.
and then others used longer, more complex documents,
Oh, wow.
like scientific papers and legal documents. And get this, it aced them all.
So it's not just a one-trick pony.
Not at all.
It can handle all these different information sources and still come out on top.
That's right.
That's really impressive. But, this almost sounds too good to be true. Did they have to kind of change the rules of the game to make LongRAG look good?
That's a great question.
Mm.
And actually, they did make a small but important change to how they measured success. In a typical question-answering test, the AI's answer has to perfectly match the correct answer, word for word.
Right.
But with LongRAG, sometimes it finds different ways to phrase the answer that are still correct. They just don't match word for word.
So it's kind of like LongRAG is understanding the meaning behind the words. It's not just repeating what it's read. Right.
Exactly. That's a big deal. It shows a deeper level of comprehension and suggests that it's moving beyond simple pattern matching toward a more nuanced understanding of language.
Right. So to account for that, they had to adjust how they were measuring things, right?
They did. They refined that evaluation metric to make sure LongRAG was getting credit for getting the right answer, even if it was phrased a little differently.
Okay, so they basically leveled the playing field to make sure that they were accurately measuring what LongRAG could do. But let's get to I guess, the heart of it. Does using those longer chunks of information actually make a difference? Or is it just like a fancy repackaging of what we were already doing?
Well, the researchers did some really in-depth studies to put LongRAG through its paces. And what they found is really fascinating. There's actually a sweet spot. When it comes to how much information you give the reader AI, there's a sweet spot. When it comes to how much information you give the reader AI.
Really? I would have thought, the more information, the better, especially for these super smart AIs, right?
Yeah, you would think so. But what they found is that if you overload the reader with too much info, even if it's all relevant, it actually starts to perform worse.
Interesting.
It's like our detective is just overwhelmed with all the details. They can't see the forest for the trees, you know?
Right, right. I guess even the best detectives can get bogged down if they have too much to sift through. So it sounds like it's not just about giving the AI more information. It's about giving it the right kind of information and the right amount of information.
Absolutely. It's all about finding that balance. And that's really where LongRAG shines, those longer retrieval units, like those chapters in the detective's case file. They strike that perfect balance. They give enough context for the AI to really understand what's going on, but without overwhelming it with all those unnecessary details.
Okay, so it's working smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
I like that. But what does this mean for the real world? How could LongRAG change things for, everyday people?
Well, imagine search engines that don't just give you a list of links, but actually understand your questions and can give you insightful answers based on all sorts of different sources.
No more endless scrolling.
No more scrolling.
Sign me up. Anything else?
Oh, absolutely. Think about virtual assistants. Instead of those generic responses, imagine a virtual assistant powered by LongRAG. It could have a real conversation with you, understand what you're asking, and give you personalized answers based on a much wider range of knowledge.
Wow. So you're saying AI could actually become enjoyable?
Enjoyable and actually helpful.
Yeah, that would be great. Let's go back to the research for a second. You mentioned that there are even better long context embedding models coming out soon. What are those exactly, and how could they affect LongRAG?
So those embedding models, they're basically the brains behind the retriever. They're what allow the AI to understand the meaning of text and then find the information that's most relevant. As those models get even more sophisticated and able to handle these longer, more complex texts, LongRAG is just going to get more and more powerful.
So it's like our superpowered detective is getting an upgrade.
That's a good way to put it.
So what are the possibilities then? Well, the possibilities are pretty much endless with these advancements. LongRAG could potentially do things like summarize complex research papers, provide expert-level advice in all sorts of fields, even generate creative content based on its understanding of different writing styles.
And all of this is happening without any training. That's incredible.
It is pretty remarkable.
It seems like LongRAG is learning and adapting on its own.
In a way, yeah,
I think it's safe to say this is a huge step forward for AI.
it really is. It suggests that we're moving towards a whole new way of designing and interacting with AI.
It's definitely exciting, and maybe even a little bit scary.
A little bit of both.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into the world of LongRAG, but I think it's time to wrap things up for today. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, some pretty mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah, it really sounds like LongRAG is opening up a whole new world for AI,
Yeah.
getting closer to how we think,
Yeah, and it's just the beginning. As those models keep getting better, who knows what we'll be able to do with it.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff, and a little bit scary, too.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think that's enough for today. We've given everyone a lot to think about, so if you're interested in learning more, check out the links to the LongRAG project. You might just discover the next big AI breakthrough. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into LongRAG. Until next time, stay curious, stay curious.